At T-Mobile, our critical mission is providing unparalleled 5G coverage for when connectivity is mission critical. Introducing T-Priority, America's best 5G network experience for first responders, even in times of congestion. More capacity, faster speeds, better coverage. T-Priority from T-Mobile, built for tomorrow's emergencies, ready today. Discover more at t-priority.com.
For qualifying organizations on eligible rate plans, coverage not available in some areas and may be impacted by emergencies.
Are negative Google reviews hurting your business? Don't let unfair feedback cost you customers. At Webamax, we specialize in removing false, misleading, and damaging reviews so your online reputation stays strong. Our expert team works quickly and legally to clean up your digital presence, helping you rebuild trust. Visit us on the web at www.gowebamax.com. That's GOWEBIMAX.com, or text us for a free quote at 856-840-8343. Don't let bad reviews define you. Get immediate help from Webamax.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
More rewards, more savings. With American Express Business Gold, earn up to $395 back in annual statement credits on eligible purchases at select shipping, food delivery, and retail subscription merchants. Enjoy the benefits of membership with the Amex Business Gold Card. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-gold. Amex Business Gold Card. Built for business by American Express.
Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like, to check the Jumbotron first, before attempting to eat a stack of Supreme nachos in one bite. Now you're just a meme that everyone shares on game day. Checking first is smart, so check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary, subject to terms, conditions, and availability. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
Hello, Duke fans. Welcome to DBR Bites, episode number 94. Duke basketball roundup here. Jason Evans, joined by Donald Wine. It's just the two of us today, Donald. No Sam on the podcast. By the way, I wanted to know
he comes here. He comes on break. He's like a college student again, right? He comes home, eats the food, exactly. And then takes off again.
Yeah, I wanted to note that because we had a lot of news, because we had a really, really interesting, fun game to talk about, and because we had the three of us together, woe is our listeners. I looked in my podcast feed. That last episode was like an hour and 15 minutes, man.
Well, there was ads. So thank you to our sponsors and stuff like that. But it was a long one. But again, I didn't get any complaints. So, when there are fun episodes like that, when you put out a historic beatdown, then you got to talk about all the different angles.
Yes. Speaking of historic beatdown, we have a couple. We had a bunch of facts. Biggest win in Madison Square Garden, all kinds of biggest win for Duke since blah blah blah, all kinds of stuff like that. Ken Pomeroy numbers that were like record breaking. A couple more facts have come out about Duke's win, the 43-point win over Illinois, that we want to get to very quickly. I'm just going to mention this one: the 43-point loss by Illinois is the biggest loss for a Big Ten team in non-conference play. Out of the non-conference, Big Ten team playing someone from another conference. Biggest loss since December 9th of 2000. Donald, do you know what happened on December 9th, 2000 that is the previous record for the biggest loss by a Big Ten team in a non-conference game?
December 9th, 2000?
Yes.
Yeah, that was us playing Michigan. I'm pretty sure.
Dude, yes.
Yeah, well we played Michigan. Sir. Avery Queen was the point guard. That I was telling you about this game a couple episodes ago, the Avery Queen game. That's this game.
Yes. In any event, the two biggest beatdowns in like ages for the Big Ten are both courtesy of the Duke Blue Devils. Also, I thought this one was unbelievable. This was the largest loss in a home or neutral game. So, meaning you're not on the road, because crazy stuff happens on the road sometimes. For a Big Ten team, this is the largest either home or neutral loss since 1942-43, when the University of Chicago lost to DePaul by 47 points. I want to point out that the University of Chicago was once in the Big Ten. They left the Big Ten in 1946 because they were non-competitive. The last time a Big Ten team lost this big in a neutral court setting was the University of Chicago during the middle of the Second World War. What?
That was a long time ago.
Oh my God.
People are like, University of Chicago is a academic school. Like they may have sports, but like in name only
Exactly.
Some people would say. They're very small. But them being a Big Ten powerhouse back then, hard to imagine.
Yeah, 1942-43 season. Half the players were at war. It's bonkers. You also had some Ken Pom stuff, you said.
Yeah, I think The Athletic put this out. I just got sent screenshots by multiple people of this passage. So they were talking about their power rankings, I think. And they have Duke number 2. Duke is also number 2 in the recently released AP poll that just came out.
And the coaches poll, yeah.
And the coaches poll came out less than an hour ago. But over the last 3 games, Duke has a points per possession average of 1.47. That is better than any single game output Auburn has had all year. And according to Ken Pom, Auburn is the most efficient offense in college basketball history. Another point, their offensive rating, you know how we have the offensive rating, it's usually a bigger number. It's like points per 100 possessions. That offensive rating, obviously because it's 1.47 points per possession, the offensive rating is 147. That's the best 3-game stretch ever against high major opponents. The previous high was in 2016, where over 3 games, UNC had one of 140. It's the 4th best 3-game stretch ever, according to Ken Pom, but the other 3-game stretches that they had listed higher are all early season games against like low major opponents, like those bye games. So when you're talking about actual competition, nobody is playing better than Duke has played over the last 3 games.
And we're about to face like the worst defensive team in power conference. Like Miami's so bad on defense.
Let's keep it going.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay. Before we get to that, something else related to Miami. Donald was on the ACC teleconference today. You know, I've been on it a couple times. Donald took his turn on it today, questioning the coaches, talking to them about all the stuff that's been going on with their teams. And when John Shire came on, the question had to be asked. A reporter, a Miami reporter, asked John Shire about the rumors, the reports, whatever you want to call it, the talk that Jay Lucas will be leaving Duke when the season is over and headed down to Miami. Donald, set it up for us.
Yeah, so I will say this is the first time, and this question was the last question. I was next in the queue, but because this answer came out, as you'll listen to, they ended the conference right after that because it was such an eloquent answer that I don't think they needed anything from me. But I will say that I believe it was Steve Wiseman earlier in the press conference. It's only like 10 minutes long, so there's only a few guys that get to ask questions. Steve Wiseman asked a similar question about Jay Lucas and the rumors. If you remember, when we talked about it on the recap for Illinois, it was a Chronicle reporter who did not ask the direct question. They kind of asked, what do you think of Jay Lucas's potential as head coach, not necessarily directly addressing rumors. This is the first time that these rumors has been addressed directly. But Michelle Kaufman from the Miami Herald, she basically asked, about the timing of this news coming out. Of course, we had talked about it a little bit on the recap and what it means essentially for Jay Lucas. And John Shire addressed everything. I don't think he held back in his words about what he thinks of Jay Lucas, but also the timing of this news. So here's that clip from Michelle Kaufman of Miami Herald.
Hi, this is Michelle Kaufman from the Miami Herald. By the way, my daughter graduated from Duke. I just had to throw that in there.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, I hate to bring up Jay Lucas again, but obviously it's a big story down here in Miami. Can you just talk about the awkwardness of the timing? Not only are you guys playing Miami tomorrow, and you're in Miami, I think, but just the fact that, March Madness is coming up, but the transfer portal also opens, in late March. And how do you navigate all this with the strange timing? And Jay has to be focused on your team, but at the same time, there's so much swirling in Miami about this. Thank you.
Yeah, well, one, it comes with the territory of the job we signed up for, to be able to handle unusual situations. Well, this is what we signed up for. Two, uh, clearly this wasn't thought out well enough, and Jay and I, look, he's one of my best friends in the world. Me and him are always going to be great. Me and him are always going to be able to navigate this. He's a terrific coach, terrific person. But there's more that's involved than just Jay and I. You think about the Miami staff and the job they're trying to do right now, the Miami players, obviously our players and what we're trying to do. So our thing is to really block it out and stay in the moment until anything becomes final, or if and when that happens. But it's not ideal, Michelle. It's not ideal by any means. I don't think it's fair to their players. And Jay is the stand-up guy, so for him right now, like, his focus is obviously on our team and prepping for Miami. Like, it's his scout. That's what he's prepping for. And so for us, like, we'll be ready to go tomorrow night. Ton of respect for Miami's players, their staff. But like, I think it's the day and age we're in of going forward where I don't know. I don't know about the timing and how that's going to operate, but the portal is different now. Like, this is a little bit of a different world. So anyway, I have a lot of thoughts, but I do know that Jay Lucas is the ultimate pro, class act. He'll do everything to handle this situation the best way possible, starting with doing his job coaching for Duke.
So, Jason, I think it was an interesting setup when Steve Wiseman asked the question, because it was not as eloquent an answer as this. And I'm sorry I didn't get that audio, but this one I think was better because, first of all, there's a lot of things that we kind of dismissed that might be in play should this move actually happen. Leaving before the NCAA tournament, under consideration and option. I don't know how to quite put it, but it's definitely something that it feels like they're not worried about until it's something to worry about. But I also think it's interesting that, the Miami game, and we talk about these guys, how they all have different assignments. Of course, Jay Lucas has been known to be the defensive guru for Duke, but he also, each assistant coach gets to scout one of the opponents that they have coming up. And Miami happened to be the game that Jay Lucas is supposed to be the lead scout on the coaching staff for. So it's interesting how that works. But I mean, John expects him to be professional, and they've talked about everything. He talked about how he considers Jay one of his best friends. And Jason, I want to kind of mention one thing that I think a lot of people, when thinking about this, don't quite understand. 10 years ago, I was in charge of both the Duke and Miami chapters here in DC at the same time. I was the president of one, I was the co-chair of the other. And there was 18 months where I was in charge of both. Nobody knew that for about a year. Not until the ACC tournament was here in DC and we had to kind of host, both fan bases, and I was basically popping back and forth between events, right? I was wearing Duke hats, I was wearing Miami hats, just going back and forth. Now, I was in charge of that. There was never a point where one bled into the other. I could multitask. I could run two chapters for two schools and do both very well. And people would ask how I'd run both efficiently. They're like, "Oh, you clearly aren't going to be dialed in." And I go, "It's very easy. Look, right now I have 4 podcasts, 3 part-time jobs, 2 blogs, and a partridge in a pear tree." Most of y'all didn't know that until I said that just now. Jason, you have a couple of pods. You have things you do in the movie world. You have a full-time job. Oh yeah, you have a family, right? You're a husband. You're a father, and you excel at all of that, right? Basketball coaches, football coaches, they got to do the same thing. They have multiple responsibilities. They have to excel in all these areas: recruiting, NIL, coaching the players that they have, whether it's offense, defense, scouting, all these different things. So I have no doubt that Jay can be a pro about this. And should this happen down the line, people have to get past the thought that he would not be 100% dedicated. We see this all the time, right? In the NFL, where coaches are interviewing for jobs while they're still in the playoffs. Kellen Moore just got the Saints job, right? He won a Super Bowl. Didn't feel like he wasn't dialed in for the Eagles on offense. Those things can happen. So what I need people to do is respect the process, whatever this process is going to be. But there is not any doubt in my mind that no matter what happens, Jay Lucas, John Shire, the rest of the coaching staff, all the players are focused on two things: winning the ACC and trying to win a national championship. That's it. If you were thinking about anything else, dismiss that, because that goes beyond the mission of what we're here for.
So I would have a couple things that I want to say about this, before we put it to bed for the moment. And I suspect that we are putting it to bed for a few weeks at least, that this is not going to come up for a while after this Miami game, when probably it'll be talked about on television. But Jay's not, taking the job. He's not, going to sign with them or anything like that until it is the appropriate time to do so. So the two things I would say is this. First of all, when you listen to that soundbite from John Shire that we played a minute ago, you could sense some frustration.
Oh, yeah.
There's no question that John is a little bit bothered by this. And I want to be clear, I don't think he's bothered at all by Jay. I think he's bothered that this leaked. And according to everything we've heard, it leaked from the Miami end. And in fact, according to everything we've heard, there isn't even a deal in place yet.
That quote that he had, that was, I mean, when he said it, like I kind of had to go off screen because I knew I had a visceral reaction. It was that quote where he said, "This clearly wasn't thought out well enough."
Yeah,
that resonated.
He wasn't talking about Jay Lucas.
That's correct. That is correct.
He was talking about Miami. And I'll tell you something. If I'm Jay Lucas, having not signed on any, Miami's a great job. No question about it. A program that has shown it can succeed, a power conference program. I mean, for that to be your first head coaching job is a big deal. I don't know that Jay Lucas is going to get a better offer, but if I was Jay Lucas, I might just sort of, check to see what else is out there, because Miami did not handle this in a good way. If as everything indicates, they are the ones who leaked this inappropriately, at the wrong time, at a distracting time. So that's number one I want to say. Number two is I hear you on Jay Lucas being able to multitask to some extent or delegate. I think it's more in a case like this. I think it'd be more delegating.
Yeah, absolutely. Bit, especially if you're in charge of one thing, but kind of for lack of a better word, the understudy to another. Yeah, you kind of have to delegate responsibility. It's part of the process.
Right. At the same time, though, I do want to note that because of the way the transfer portal works, because of the way recruiting works for high school freshmen and for high school seniors, it's getting in that job as quickly as possible. It is a big deal. If Duke goes as far as we think they're going to go, if Duke is playing into April, which seems like a very, very real possibility, it's going to put Jay Lucas a couple weeks behind everybody else in the transfer portal, if that is what happens with him in Miami. So I get the concern about the timing, because the transfer portal opens like right around the time of the Sweet 16. If you're playing in the Sweet 16 and your coaches are still there, and your coaches want to be, or not want to be elsewhere, but they need to be elsewhere, it's definitely an issue, because guys into the portal and they get out of the portal very quickly. And if you're Miami and you want to rebuild through the portal, which is what probably they need to look at doing, it could be, it could be something a little bit of a problem for someone like Jay Lucas. But this is the reality of the way the sport is right now, and we just have to deal with it. And I am confident that John and Jay have talked this through, that there are no surprises, that there's no animosity, and that they both know that they can handle this with no problems.
Yeah, and the last thing I think on the transfer portal, I think people are fixated on the date that it opens and thinking that he needs to be there at that point. If you recall last year, did anybody leave during the tournament for us because the transfer portal opened during the tournament? No.
No.
Did we grab anybody from the transfer portal that was in the transfer portal when it started. No, all of them came out after we had, they basically saw, hey, Duke's got some openings, and then they entered the transfer portal. Sion James, Malik Brown, Cameron Sheffield, Mason Gillis, none of those, and Mason Gillis was in the national championship game, right? None of those guys entered the transfer portal until after the entire season was done. So it is still possible for somebody to be a coach all the way through to the first Monday in April and then not miss a beat in the transfer portal because the number increases as teams exit. So you're not going to, I mean, if you're trying to get a guy from a team that's in the Final Four, they're not leaving during the tournament. So there's going to be players available. And if he decides that this is the job for him or another job, because Jason, I think honestly, there will be some people that he's not going to have to go look for something else. People are going to call him. And they have been calling him for a year now. So I think it's a case of if he wants this job, it feels like it's going to be his if he wants it. But, I think people are trying to create A, controversy, or B, stress around this moment and honestly, we should just be talking about the fact that we're going down to Miami to play a basketball game against one of the worst teams in the ACC, coming off of a high, and we need to stay focused on the fact that this is still a game that we need to win.
Yeah, and with that, I think we should get into our preview of Miami. But before we do, we're going to take a quick break. After this break, a preview of Duke's second contest with the Miami Hurricanes. Stay with us.
Love, exciting and new. Hello, Hannah Waddingham here. Have you seen the fabulous new Sun Princess? World-class entertainment, exceptional dining, and the greatest pizza ever. It's
Don't miss our Come Aboard sale with up to 40% off and free room upgrades. Visit princess.com or call your travel advisor to book. Princess Cruises. Terms and restrictions apply. Offer ends 2/28/25. Ships at Bermudan and British Registry.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, we're back from the break. And Donald, it is time for us to look ahead to the Tuesday contest down in Coral Gables against the Miami Hurricanes. Duke going on the road in the ACC. Ordinarily, you'd be like, this could be a dangerous situation. Mr. Wine, would you explain to us, is this a dangerous situation or not?
This team is bad, and I have to watch a lot of it. That's not to say that we shouldn't take them seriously, because we should, but it's a chore to watch the Miami Hurricanes. And let me tell you, this preview is full of love for my law school alma mater, but I've had to watch a lot of bad basketball over the last 3 months, in addition to some of the great basketball that we have been able to see.
Yes. All right. Tell us what they've done both on the season, but more specifically, since we faced them the last time. I believe January 14th was the date that we played them, right?
Yeah. Well, we beat them 89-54 back in January 14th. This is the first team somehow.
Wait, hold on. 89-50. Let's just repeat
89-54. Yes, I'm sorry. They're not that bad.
That is a beatdown, my friend.
Yes. But I will say this. We've made it to late February, and this is the first team that we've seen twice this year, which I think is incredible given the schedule. I think we see Wake again, and obviously we see UNC again. Those are our three teams we see twice. But it's interesting that we've made it to late February, having only played a team once and not having played them again. So since we played them back on January 14th, Miami is 2-8. They do have the 2 wins in the ACC. They're 6-21 on the year, 2-14 in the ACC. Their wins over Notre Dame and Syracuse. Now, their losses since then, right after we played them, they played SMU, and they gave up 117 points in a loss to SMU. That is a number that NBA teams don't reach all the time. So that tells you some of the defense that I know you're going to get into. They also lost to Stanford, Cal, UVA, Louisville, Pitt, FSU, and Virginia Tech. I will say this. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the lineups that they've had lately, but I will say in general, in the two wins that they had against Notre Dame and Syracuse, the one thing that stood out from those games compared to the others is that they kept Notre Dame and Syracuse under 50% from 2 points, from on 2 point shots, while they shot closer to 60%. Because the difference in those games was that stat. They beat Notre Dame by 6. They beat Syracuse by 7. And so that's an interesting thing because Nigel Pack has not played since early December. They keep saying he's day to day or like out indefinitely. They have not said if he's coming back this year at all. But he's been out since December, so the chances of him coming back are very remote. But because of that, the long ball is not a factor for them. They haven't shot threes very consistently. They do shoot them well at times, but it's the 2 point shots, them going to the rack and getting baskets. We saw that when we played them back in Cameron, when Lid Kid had 20 points, 60 of them in the first half. So I think those are some of the things you're looking at, Jason. But make no mistake, we thought things were going to get better, at least somewhat better. And to say they have is true because they have won 2 games since then. That's the only thing that's really been good about this team so far this year.
No, they have not gotten better. Bart Torvik's rankings allow you to sort by date. And since the last time we played Miami, you pointed out they're 2-8. If you just sort that section of the season, since we played them, they've been the 241st team in the country. Their defense, abysmal. They're among the bottom 40 defenses in college basketball over the past 6 weeks. And frankly, on the whole season, they're even worse than that. It's as incredible as it is, as bad as they were when we played them last time. They are worse today. They were 139 in Ken Palm when we played them last. Today, they're 189. They were 308th on defense when we last played them. Today, they're 336th. I want to repeat that so folks understand. Duke brings the number 2 offense in the country, playing like, out of its mind, into an arena where we're playing the number 336 defense. Oh my God, it's going to be brutal. Miami is terrible at defending the three-pointer. They allow teams to hit close to 39% from long distance. East Carolina, Bellarmine, and Columbia. Those 3 schools, the only schools in the country who are worse at defending the three-pointer than Miami. If you think about the most obscure, lousy program down in Division I in like the Summit League or the SWAC or the Horizon or the MEAC. And by the way, those guys trying their hardest. I don't mean to criticize them, but that's just the reality. Bad conferences. The worst teams in those conferences, the very worst team in each of those conferences, Miami's worse than them at defending the three-pointer. Woo! They are almost as bad at defending the two-pointer. They allow teams to hit better than 56% of their two-point shots. If you're allowing teams to hit 56% of their twos and 40% of their threes, you're going to lose. You're going to lose. You're going to lose. This Miami team gives up a lot of assists. They allow assists on more than 55% of made baskets. They don't force steals. They don't get turnovers. They're 324th in the country at defensive turnover rate. I mean, they're so bad on defense. There's no words for it. Like you said, SMU put up 117. It's kind of incredible that a power conference team could be this awful on defense.
And they feel it feels disjointed throughout the entire game. Like I said, when you get to the players, we'll talk about some of their combinations that they've been kind of tinkering with, but every single time they have a possession, it feels like they're doing it for the first time. It feels like, in practice, the very first practice season where they're like, this is the motion offense and we're going to teach you the basics of the motion offense. That's how they play sometimes because it just feels like they don't know that they didn't have plays, that they just drew it up and they're just giving it an old go to see if it works. And if it works, they try to do it again. If it doesn't work, they abandon it and do something else. And so when you see them play, that's how these games end up becoming a chore because it's not like they're even being blown out in every single game, but they are it just feels like they are not in any contest from the opening tip. And you can feel it when you watch them play. You can see it in how they play, right? The shoulders are all slumped as if when a team takes lead, they just kind of just like, oh no, not again. It's very frustrating to watch as a Miami person. is very frustrating to watch. But as a neutral, like just a fan of the ACC, again, as we've mentioned before, this is the program that has been in the top of the ACC since it got in here. It's been one of the surprise basketball programs of the ACC. Like in the last like decade since, Larry Nagel took over, they've been the team to watch. They've always been right after UNC and after maybe Virginia. You have Syracuse, who's fighting to even be in the ACC tournament this year, and somehow Miami is worse than that. So it's been a real struggle, and I don't think they have the answers.
No, that's why they're going to hire Jay Lucas or someone like that, because they do not have the answers.
Right.
I want to get to their offense really quickly because they are a fairly decent offensive team. They're top 40 in 2-point field goal percentage and free throw percentage. So they're decent at shooting the ball as long as they're inside of 15 feet. They don't turn the ball over a lot. They are bad, though, at 3-point shooting. They hit just 32% from deep. But other than that, I mean, they're at least okay on offense. Their assist percentage is kind of low, which means they play a lot of one-on-one ball. But, this is not the kind of team that is just going to struggle to score all the time. They do a fairly decent job as long as they're not shooting three-pointers. It's also worth noting they're, okay, but not very good at rebounding. They're sort of mediocre on both sides of the ball at rebounding. Let's get to the players really quick, Donald. As you mentioned, Nigel Pack hasn't played since December, and I've got no reason to think that he's going to suddenly magically start playing again against Duke. Matthew Cleveland, who in the absence of Nigel Pack has been their best player by a fairly significant margin. Matthew Cleveland missed their weekend game against Virginia Tech. He had a leg injury. They haven't identified exactly what the leg injury is. They haven't been too clear about, how long he's going to be out, but I would say he's doubtful for the game against Duke. Do you have more on that?
Yeah, well, I got to ask Bill Courtney this very question.
Perfect.
So first of all, Matthew Cleveland he injured his ankle in the FSU game. So and while he said he's going to try to give it a go in practice, he didn't seem hopeful that Matthew Cleveland will be ready for tomorrow night. So there's that. But I will say this, Jason, about the players before you get to specifics. They have, over the last 10 games, they've had 9 different lineups. And Bill Courtney has kind of shuffled the deck trying to find a 5 that works and just hasn't really found it. But funny enough, the 2 games that had the same lineup are the 2 games that they won against Notre Dame and Syracuse. And that lineup was Matthew Cleveland, Lynn Kidd, Jaleel Bethea, Divine Okechukwu, and Brandon Johnson. So I asked him, first of all, I asked him just generally what it's going to take to beat Duke, knowing that they've seen them before. And I'll spoil a little bit. He says, play better. But I will say I also asked about that lineup and to ask what about that lineup has been working for them, and if Matthew Cleveland doesn't go, who needs to step up? And he gave a pretty eloquent response. So here that is. Thank you, Bill. Thanks for your time this morning. First off, just general thoughts. You've gotten to look at Duke once this year. What adjustments do you make for playing them at home this time around?
Play better. Obviously they're very, very good. They do so many things on both ends of the floor that are challenging for your team. Again, we got to just concentrate on playing as well as we can play. If we do that, we'll give ourselves a chance. Their size, I think, is really the thing that stands out when you look at Duke, and it allows them to do so many things defensively. And they're such a good passing team, which makes their offense go at an incredibly high level. And so they present lots of challenges.
Over the last 10 games since you played Duke, you've tinkered with your starting 5 quite a bit, but the past 2 wins that you've had, you had the same lineup of Cleveland, Kidd, Bethea, Okechukwu, and Johnson. I know you said Matt is questionable for tomorrow, but what about that lineup has been working for you, and who do you turn to if Matt can't go?
Yeah, I think that lineup started to develop some chemistry. Even in the games we lost, I think we played well and we were competitive. We kind of had a rotation going, and it's unfortunate when Matt goes down because our team is, again, this is a long, long year, and it took a while for us to even figure out who we were and how we could have any success at all. And now we have that. We're competitive, and Matt goes down. He's your leading scorer, one of your best defenders, and so AJ Stan McCray had a good game on Saturday, so we'll hope that he can continue that. But our freshmen got to play well. We have about 8 guys we play. 3 of those guys are freshmen, and they have to play well for us to have a chance. It's that simple.
So Jason, yeah, it doesn't seem like Matthew Cleveland's ready to go, but he's riding the freshmen a lot. And we talked before when we played them the first time, we talked about how they had some great, freshmen coming in, right? Jalil Bethea was a top 10 recruit, just haven't quite panned out. Austin Schwartz hasn't quite panned out. Divine Okechukwu just hasn't quite gotten it together consistent wise. He said that they have to play better if they're gonna do better. And I think it's a little bit unfair, right? Like to place so much pressure on the freshmen to perform when you have so many upperclassmen. But it also feels like this is him kind of in a more positive way, trying to encourage them to step out of their shell and play the way that they did to get to this point, right? They didn't get to Miami by, being a shell in high school. They played well in high school and they earned this opportunity. So play like that. So I think that's what he's trying to do. But again, it's been a real struggle for the freshmen, especially to come along and enter the potential that everyone thought they had.
Yeah, and as I continue with the players, with no Nigel Pack, with likely no Matthew Cleveland, I think the guy that they need to count on is probably Lynn Kidd, 6'10" big man, came over from Virginia Tech. He's probably been like their second best player throughout most of the year, to Matthew Cleveland. Folks may remember he had 20 points when we played them in Cameron, and he was easily their best player in that game. He took 17 shots in that game, and that's just a huge outlier for him on the season. He usually is taking like 6 to 9 shots a game. So it was really surprising to see him shooting as much as he did, to see them going to him as much as they did against Duke. I think that you may see them try that again in this contest. Maybe if Miami is going to, figure out a way to surprise Duke, maybe to make this competitive, I think getting it into Lynn Kidd, who's a bouncy and kind of mobile big man, seeing if he can maybe get Kamen Malawach in foul trouble, and then it's Patrick Gongba, and he's experienced, Lynn Kidd, been around the league for a long time. Maybe he gets Patrick Gongba in foul trouble too, and suddenly that's a situation where Duke could be in a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, also I wanted to ask John Shire this. But you mentioned the fact that he had 20 points against us, and if you remember from that game afterwards, John Shire and Malawach himself said that he had 14 or 16 points in the first half, and they kind of made it a mission right. Hey, stop that dude in the middle. If you stop that dude in the middle, they have nobody left. And so Malawach was like, I took that as a personal challenge, and he ended up having 4 or 6 points in the second half, and it really grinded their offense to a halt because they kept trying to go to him. But yes, I think they're going to try and take another bite out of that apple, so to speak. They're going to try and get the ball inside and hope that the interior defense that we saw against Illinois, which again, we talked about how it was shaky at times during that game, if Lynn's able to capitalize on that. But also, it's just they like to go to the basket. Even their guards like to drive to the rim and get shots at the rim. This is where I think a more confident Malawach, who's coming to his own offensively, and a more confident Patrick Gongba, who's coming to his own on both offense and defense, that emerging confidence is going to hopefully curtail Lynn Kidd and the other guys that got inside.
Yeah, and I feel like, the guy who was supposed to be shouldering the load as we get further and further into the season, you mentioned him, was Jalil Bethea. Top 10 recruit. The expectations were that this guy would light it up for a year and that he would be one and done and head off to the NBA draft. He was similarly ranked. He's a wing as a shooting guard. He was similarly ranked to guys like Con Knipple, VJ Edgecombe, Liam McNeely, Ian Jackson, and it has just not worked out for
McDonald's All-American.
Yeah. Again, top 10 recruit. He's getting the minutes, he's averaging 25 minutes a game since the start of January, but he seems reluctant to shoot at times. They played Virginia Tech the other day. He was 1 of 7 for 2 points in the game. The previous game they played Florida State, he's 2 of 7 for 6 points. They played Louisville a couple weeks ago. He took 3 shots in the whole game, didn't score. But every so often you'll see these glimpses of Bethea's talent. They beat Syracuse 2 weeks ago. He went for 21 points. He hit 3 of 4 from deep. I mean, he showed he's capable, but he just doesn't have the confidence, and they're not using him, frankly, the way I think they expected to use him. And the last thing I'll say about sort of their players, because there are just a lot of other guys here, and I can't tell which one's going to. Yeah, there was some guy who's like a little used, like plays like 12, 14 minutes a game. And against Virginia Tech, he was the guy who took the most shots for them. You can't tell what's going on with them. This Miami team has no idea what's happening. But the other guy I wanted to highlight is anytime a team is trying to get an upset, anytime a team is coming in to play Duke, or not coming, well, Duke's going on the road, but you wonder about the three ball. We talked about the fact that Miami's a terrible 3-point shooting team. They just don't have that many guys who can shoot. The guy who shoots the most for them is Brandon Johnson. He has taken 98 threes on the season. By the way, Duke has 3 guys who've taken more than 100, and Isaiah Evans has taken like 96. Like, basically, Brandon Johnson, who's the guy who fires the most for Miami, would be like the 4th most 3-point shooter on the Duke team. But the problem with Brandon Johnson is he's been terrible this year. 26.5% on his 3-pointers. For Miami to have a chance in this game, Lynn Kidd probably needs to get Duke's big men in trouble. Brandon Johnson and the other guys who shoot from the perimeter need to get hot, and they need to figure out a way to stop Duke on defense. I don't know that that's possible, but that's kind of the formula for them. But it is a very, very unlikely formula.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at some of the things to watch in this game, it's just like the offense, just like the lineup combinations. Take your pick. It's hard to really narrow down what it's going to take for Duke to come back to this. I will start with this. No letdown, right? We just had a great game. We just had a great week. No letdown from that. And it's easy for fans. It's easy for players. It's easy for anybody to think about that game we just had in the Garden and go, oh, we're just going down to play Miami, right? Like it's fine. This is actually, Jason, if you combine this with the game of Virginia, this is the longest road stretch we've had all year. And again, counting the neutral side of the Garden, they've been on the road for about a week and a half. And I need these guys to really feel like they can put all their effort into this game. It does not matter who the opponent is. It doesn't matter how bad or good they're playing. Just because this is the worst team in the ACC doesn't mean you have to play like they're the worst team in the ACC. Go out and take this game from the beginning. Don't give Miami any wiggle room. It's always easy on the road for the team, the home team, to get easy momentum by just railing off a few points and getting the crowd behind him and things like that. Things that we don't have when we're on the road. Sure, there's going to be some people there, and Bill Cord even said there's going to be people here who might be here to watch Cooper Flag play, and that's okay. But their job is to kind of capture the imagination of those people that are there and turn them into Miami fans. So I think at the end of the day, the interior defense, keep Lincoln out of there, as you said. And last time, we out-rebounded them 33-22. If we continue to toast them on the boards, they're a team that likes to thrive off of going to the basket. They don't necessarily need to be super efficient. They want to get shots off and maybe get some rebounds and keep putting back up until they go in. You see a lot of volleyball like off of the backboard as they're trying to get the ball to go into the hoop. If we can curtail that like we did last time, we're looking at a nice, easy win. But again, it's going to take the effort, it's going to take the intensity, and there should be no drop off. Just because we just beat Illinois by 43, let's not rest on our laurels. Let's go after them and make sure Miami is also added to that list.
Yeah, the very last thing I wanted to mention was Ken Pomeroy's computer has a prediction on this game. He says that Duke will win by 23 points, 89-66. With the way that Duke has been crushing it on offense. Thank you for highlighting that at the top, Donald. And the porous nature of the Miami defense, I think it would take an abnormally cold night from Duke for us not to reach 90 points, even in a game that's on the road. And, teams don't shoot as well on the road as they do at home. Although, frankly, when you saw Duke go on the road to Madison Square Garden, they shot pretty darn well. So
it was nice, and we should keep doing it because, again, we like the fun shows, Jason.
Exactly. Hey, a quick closing note for everybody. We just got word from the ACC that the rookie of the week in the ACC this past week was none other than Cooper Flag. I know that comes as a shock. It is the 11th time that Cooper has won the ACC rookie of the week. That is a record. If you want to make the argument that Cooper Flag is the greatest rookie, greatest freshman in ACC basketball history, you now have evidence. He has won the ACC Rookie of the Week award more than anyone else. by the way, the season isn't over. There's still a couple more weeks where he could win it. He's winning it like 70% of the time or something absurd like that. So, and by the way, he was also co-ACC Player of the Week, along with Donald Hand Jr. of Boston College, is the 5th time that he has won Rookie of the Week and Player of the Week at the same time. My goodness. We need to pause and consider what we are watching, because we're watching something damn special.
Can I say tongue in cheek that it should be Isaiah Evans this week for Rookie of the Week?
That's what we thought. That's what we thought,
right? So, yeah. This is awesome for the kid, and it's funny, Jason. Like when it came through, it's that email comes through every week, and his name has been on it so many times that I kind of just block it out, right? Like, oh yeah, Cooper Flag did something else again.
They should rename it. It should be the Cooper Flag ACC Rookie of the Week award.
Right? Yeah. It should be something, because every week we get a nice little email that says Cooper Flag, and we already know what he did, because we're seeing it and you're seeing it out there too. It's fun. It's so much fun to be a part of this season. Let's keep it going. I think we got 3 more weeks left in the season that he can win Rookie of the Week and Player of the Week. So let's make it a clean sweep.
Works for me. I got no problem with that at all. All right, with that, we're going to call it quits on the latest edition of DBR Bites. He's Donald. I'm Jason. We'll be back at you for a recap of the Miami game. We may have some other stuff to do somewhere else in this week. And then we go into the real home stretch here. Till then, Donald, Jason, Duke Band, they're playing us out, taking us home. I completely forgot who we played this weekend.
Florida State. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. I was like, the words were coming out of my mouth and I was like, I don't know where this is going. I don't know what I'm doing.
If I sometimes do this. I'm like, and I was like, be saying like, yeah, that other night when we played, that team that, was against us and we beat them. And they all blur together, Jason. Like, that Illinois. Yeah. Illinois. Yeah. That team. Yeah.
Whoever the hell it was. Right. Exactly.
Whoever it was.